this is where the fun part happens. So you can see I've punched out a couple of rows. I'd like you to do, pretty much all of these. Keep going. They get a little simpler as we go down. But yeah, I'd like you to populate the whole building. It shouldn't take you that long. But now we have to go get other stuff, right? We have to create our composite. So I've got these images here that are open. And you'll notice that they're up here tabbed. All right. The other thing is if I go to Window and I come down past all of these tools, at the bottom of the window, it lists everything you have open. So if you lose track of where you are, this is another way to make sure of that. Here's something I didn't get a chance to show you in class. If you wanted to see everything all at once, let's see, I think I have 4 images, so I'll choose 4 up. It'll break up the view so that you can literally see everything that you have open at the same time. And this can be helpful. Now, as I mentioned in class, a couple ways to do this. I can marquee a box, I can copy, I can come to the building, and I can paste. I encourage you to use the keyboard commands. And there is my lioness. I'll double click on her and I'll name her, and I'm going to pull her down to the bottom. All right. And I'm going to scale her. Now, Ella asked a very good question in class. She asked, do you have control over how much you scale? Like if you knew that you wanted the lioness to be 50%. And the answer is yes, and those controls are here. As you start to use these transformational tools, again, this responsive top bar is going to tell you. So you can see that the lioness is 83% of what she was. If I definitively wanted her to be 50%, these two things, the aspect ratio is linked together. So if I hit the enter key, et voila, she is at 50%. And she just doesn't fit, so I'm just going to grab her and move her. All right, and I'm going to hit the enter key, and there she is. Just want to point out that my Show Transform Controls button is on. If you can't see these handles, this is what you need. All right? So there's the lioness, and she lives on the top floor. So I can close her now. So I'm left with my building, and I've got these bunnies, and I've got this apple. Let's do the bunnies next. Here's another way to drag things from one file to another. I can see the bunny, I can see the building. Come here, bunnies. Oh, there you are. And I think you can see how much larger the bunnies are than the building. Talked about this last week. The bunny file, if I go into image size, it's a 300 dot per inch image. The building file is a 72 dot per inch image. That's why you have this disparity. If I back up, if I hit Command here, let me go back and get the building. If I hit Command 0, just kind of center this file, you can see the disparity between these two files. Okay, so the bunnies are going to go all the way in the back. They'll go behind the lioness. And again, I'm going to make them smaller. I think the bunnies are going to live under the lion. I'm sure that would be a nice stress-free life for a bunny, to live under a roaring lioness. Command plus, Command plus, Command plus, Command plus. Now you notice how funny it looks? It's because it's being transformed. If I hit the return key, it goes back to being sharpened again. Don't worry if things go soft focus. All right, and you can see what a really bad job I did on this window. I should go back and clean that up. But for now, let's keep moving forward. Let's go back to Edit, Transform. Let's go to Rotate. And again, if you knew that you wanted this thing rotated at 45 degrees, you could just type that in and it would rotate it. If you're not sure how much you want to rotate the bunnies, you could simply go in and say Transform, Rotate, and do it. And you notice that it's keeping track up there. Negative, if I go counterclockwise, it's a negative number. If I go clockwise, it's a positive number. All right? So there are my bunnies. One more. Let's do the apple. And the reason I have this green screen apple is because I wanted to go back for a second to these selection tools. Now the object selection tool is ready to rock and roll, because this is a clearly defined image against a clearly defined background. And so if I click, you can see it's doing a very nice job of finding that. And its select subject is on. So you see now that different selection tools are built for different types of images. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to come back to the building. And by the way, if I've pulled the building out of the dock, I can go back in and redock it if I want to. So I'm going to paste. Let me back up so you can see this. Now, I pasted the apple behind the building. If I click with my move tool, if I go to the move tool because I want to move it, see it light up? That's why I want you to keep the show transform controls on. One of the reasons I want you to do that. Let's move it to the front. Bunnies like apples, so the apple now can be a little nervous about living next to the bunnies. Everybody, there's a very high anxiety building. Let's go in and I will move this. I'm going to name this. I'm going to name all my layers. Just double click and name your layers. But for the apple, because I've silhouetted it, I need something behind it. So I could go get the image of a room. I could go get an image of a galaxy or a sky, whatever I wanted to do. But I want to fill this with color. So I'm going to make a new layer. And I'll call it apple background because that's what it's going to be. I'm going to come over here and get the selection tool and create this selection. And I'm going to come over here to my foreground and background color. And I'll click a bright color. And I'll show you the keyboard command later. But for now, you can go to Edit, Fill. I don't want to fill with black. I want to fill with the foreground color. We'll go over all of these. But for now, here's foreground color. And there it is. All right. And I'll deselect it. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to build up layers. And just to show you, I'm going to make a folder. I'm going to call it Apple Apartment. And I'm going to drag the apple into the folder. And I'm going to drag the background into the folder. This is one way, we talked about this a little bit in class, of organizing your files. Would I like it if every apartment had a folder? If you use multiple images in an apartment? I'd love it. This is just you kicking the tires, okay? It can be silly. It can be funny. I just want to know that you went in and started messing about with the tools. Get to know it. Take it for a spin. Have a little fun with it. And we'll look at these in class on Thursday. Email or Slack me with questions.